Accessing library computer data.
This computer terminal provides full access to the LCAR's computer net. It can be operated both by voice and keypad commands.
Hello, everyone, and happy Star Trek Day. Welcome to the first episode of the Hastings Files, a Star Trek Adventures Captain's Log. I'm Sean Pulsifer, a.k.a. Captain Cameron Hastings. So just to begin with, I want to just introduce myself, give a little bit of background of who I am and everything, so you know who I am, right? So I'm Sean. I am a graduate of the Los Angeles Film School with a bachelor's degree in digital filmmaking. I'm also currently a master's student at Full Sail University, pursuing a master's in entertainment business, which I will achieve by the end of this year in 2023. I currently am based in Calgary, Alberta, and I am a dual citizen of Canada and the United States. I've been a Star Trek fan for well over 30 years, and I am a novice to Star Trek Adventures. So Captain's Log is a perfect tool to learn the dynamics of Star Trek Adventures and to maybe someday actually lead my own game of Star Trek Adventures, a full game. But I'm looking forward to Captain's Log and sharing my adventures and my journey in learning Captain's Log and Star Trek Adventures with you in this podcast. So let's go ahead and get started. This week, we're going to talk about character creation and just in general, what it takes to create a character. Because, there are the rules and everything that Star Trek Adventures talks about in creating a character. But as a film student, as a graduate with a film degree, there's a lot more that goes into character design and creation. You want your characters to be believable, relatable, especially if you're wanting to share them like I'm doing with you, is sharing Captain Cameron Hastings with you. But I want you to be able to create characters that, for you and even for people that you're sharing these characters with, to feel as if they're real characters, that they're real people. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So before I go into the character creation in Captain's Log, I want to just go a little bit into what makes a character. Okay, so basically, think about yourself as a real person. What are your interests? What makes you you? What life events define who you are? What adjectives define you? Like, if you were to go meet a complete stranger, how would you define yourself? And that's basically what you're doing with these characters. You want to create a backstory, a believable backstory, a backstory that defines who your character is. And we will go into that. Like, the next episode, you will get introduced into who Cameron Hastings is. So let's go ahead and jump into things. All right, so basically what I'm going to do with Captain Log, there are a few ways to create a character, but I'm choosing the life path creation of a character. So the starting points of, I'm looking at my screen here. So there's 7 stages in the development of a life path character. So your first step is defining a species. What species do you want your character to be? Cameron Hastings is human. I want a human character. So instead of doing a random roll, which you can use your D20s for, I want to go human. But there is a plethora of species to choose from in Captain's Log, ranging from the Enterprise era, the TOS era, TNG era, and so on. Like, there's just so many you can choose from. But, and each one has their own different values that, and different attributes and disciplines and stuff. So if you have an idea of where you want your story to go, you can pick a species that can help facilitate that end goal where you want your story to go. So Cameron Hastings I'm going to begin with is he is a character I created on Star Trek Online. But this version of Hastings is different than my Star Trek Online Hastings. Completely different. But, he is a character I did create I was trying to do a Star Trek fan film for, but it never came to pass. So I decided I'm going to mold this character into two different versions, essentially, kind of like Prime and Kelvin timeline type thing, right? But so I thought this would be fun to actually create Cameron Hastings' story right outside of Star Trek Online. All right, so as I said, I'm chosen human for Hastings. So I'm just going to read what Captain's Log says here about humans. Humans are a resilient, diverse, and adaptable species. From warring nations on the brink of mutual annihilation, developed an allied and peaceful society engaged with the wider galaxy, founding member of the Federation. So to begin with, I have my character she. So I put Cameron Hastings. My pronouns are he, him. And then, my rank, he's captain. So we'll type that in. So my attributes. So it says at +1 to any 3 attributes. So earlier in the book, they do talk about different attributes. So I'm not going to go into much detail, but so I'd recommend looking back into the book to see which attributes you want. So what I'm going to do is I'm choosing control, insight, and reason. So I've added 1 to any 3. So those were my 3: control, insight, and reason. All right, so now I've picked my species and added those attributes. So now we're going to jump ahead outside of the species, which, as I said, there's many. Okay. Now we're going to go to step 2, which is the environment of where your character came from. What was their, where did they come from? What type of environment did they grow up in? So I'm just going to, once again, read what Star Trek Captain's Log states here. So environment. Regardless of their species, Starfleet officers come from many environments across many worlds. While many humans are born on Earth, many more were born on a colonized world elsewhere in the galaxy, on a starbase or on a starship. Your character's environment grants them a single value, 1 point in a single attribute, and 1 point in a single discipline. So your disciplines are command, con, security, engineering, science, and medicine. In choosing your character's environment, you'll start from either its setting, such as a homeworld or colony, or its conditions, such as a utopian paradise or world at war. Each offers different storytelling prompts, but both provide the same type of benefits to your character sheet. Sorry. So you may choose their environment or randomly determine it. So randomly would mean using your handy dandy dice. So for the sake of character creation for this podcast, I'm going to go ahead and do a random roll for where Cameron comes from. I already have an idea of where he comes from, but it is very flexible. Whatever environment he comes from will still fit the profile I want to create for this character. All right, so I'm going to take one 20-sided dice. We'll go ahead and do a random roll to find out What environment did Cameron Hastings come from? So we rolled a 12. So 12 would be isolated colony. So if I rolled up between a 9 and a 12, he comes from an isolated colony. Honestly, that is where I was leaning towards putting the character anyway. So a lucky roll. So environment, on the character sheet, I put isolated colony. All right, so next. So we're going to go find isolated colony in here. So with the isolated colony, that would mean we're, isolated from main Federation society, which is where I did envision Cameron growing up from, because his parents his mother is a Starfleet officer, his father is an anthropologist. So his father's career does lead them to places where are isolated from regular Federation life. So because Cameron grew up isolated colony, so he gains a value which reflects the environment and a culture the character was raised within. So I'm not going to go into values today, but you can read that in the book or look it up online what values are. And they pretty much, it's self-explanatory. What are your values? That type of thing. All right, so then we also add for attributes, choose either reason or insight, increase that attribute by 1. So I've already have insight. I have 1 for insight and 1 for reason. I think I'm going to go ahead and add that attribute to insight, which will bring insight up to 2, keeping control 1 and reason 1. All right. And, depending on where your character grows up, the attributes are different. So homeworld would be different. Busy colony, frontier colony will all be different. Another species homeworld, it's just it's different. All right, so next is continuing with environment. What were the conditions? What conditions did this character grow up in? Such as a utopian paradise, which is Earth, cosmopolitan city, rigorous discipline, so like military type upbringing, and that struggle and hardship, occupation or war. Like what conditions did they grow up in? So I'm going to go ahead and do another roll to see what kind of environment did Cameron grow up in? What were the conditions? I may or may not go with this roll, but because I do have an idea of what environment he did grow up in. And so let's go ahead and do another roll. $13. So 13. So asceticism and introspection. So let's see, which I think actually might work for what I envision this character to be within the realm of Captain's Log and the story I want to tell for Cameron at this stage. All right, so I'm going to read what Captain's Log says about these conditions. Your life was a simple one, lacking in many of the luxuries and prosperous worlds take for granted. This was not because of a lack, but rather a choice, a belief among those you grew up with that external and material abundance can distract from self-knowledge and personal growth. Once again, you can write down a value that matched this upbringing, which I won't go into today. So you'll add that. So now we're getting into an attribute. What attribute does this upbringing create? So choose one of the following attributes and increase it by 1. Control, insight, reason. All right, so once again, those are the same 3 I've already pre-chosen. So I already got 2 for insight. I think I might bring control up to 2. I'll add 1 to control. So now we got 2 for control, 2 for insight, and 1 for reason. So now at this stage, we can also now look at discipline. So with this type of upbringing, this disciplines, I choose one, either science, engineering, or medicine, and increase that discipline by 1. So what I see Cameron being, where I kind of look at it, backstory that's already in my head, I think a science background probably will suit him best as the first choice for his discipline. It's definitely, science and engineering are the 2 I would say he would fit into more than medicine. So I'm going to go with science right now. Okay, so I'm going to also add to the environment on the character sheet the conditions. Okay, so now, and as also it just says same as with where he grew up, each type of environment, that if lifestyle and stuff, has an impact on which values and which disciplines you have a choice to choose from. Okay, so now we've established what environment did Cameron Hastings come from. We've established, we've advanced some attributes. We've added a discipline. So now, step 3 in the character creation process in Captain's Log is early outlook. So what, so based off of their growing, their environment that they grew up in, what drove them to their education, their career path, what early outlook was shaped by these experiences. As I said before, Cameron's mother was a Starfleet officer, and his father is a scientist, an anthropologist. So, he would have had technically a divided upbringing. Probably would have spent time with his mother on starships or outposts, and his father at research facilities and in colonies, and in learning about different cultures. And so he had a very diverse upbringing, I believe. So now, how did this upbringing impact his upbringing? All right, so with this early outlook, let's just take a quick look at the book here. All right, so first we need to select their upbringing and determine whether they accepted or rebelled against it. Then second, we apply, especially applying to Klingon characters or those raised in Klingon households, it is to select their caste, which Cameron doesn't need to worry about a caste, and whether they accepted it or, so we don't need to do that. And then the last option is to simply choose an aspiration. What drove my character, onto their journey, and whether they pursued or gave up on it. All right, so upbringings, the nature of a person's family and their surroundings that they grew up can have a massive impact upon them. As we all know, as real people, our upbringing has a strong impact on what defines who we are. So the same exact thing with these characters. As I was saying earlier, you really need to if you really want a well-rounded character, you need to know everything about them. So, all right, so your character's upbringing provides them with 3 points spread across 2 attributes, a single point to add to one of their disciplines, and a single focus, which should relate to in some way to the upbringing chosen. When adding your character's focus, you may choose one of the provided examples, randomly select a focus using the probability matrix on page 85, or write your own focus to fit your character's backstory. So it's a good idea to kind of have an idea where you want your character to go when you're at this point. So first, choose your character's upbringing or randomly determine it from the matrix below by rolling a d20. So the random options are Starfleet, business or trade, agriculture or rural, science and technology, artistic and creative, diplomacy and politics. And then, if you rolled a 19 or 20, pick one or re-roll. So, as I said, I already know what his upbringing was. So, what I'm going to do is, because he had a duel basically, but I would say that Starfleet is what really defined his life. So we're going to go with Starfleet as his upbringing. Is Starfleet technically does define science and technology. So Starfleet, we're going to go with Starfleet for his upbringing. All right, so with Starfleet, you have, with attributes, we have your character accepted this upbringing. The orderly, purposeful life increases their control by 2 and their fitness by 1. If Cameron rejected this upbringing and were bold and self-determined living, we increase the daring by 2 and insight by 1. I probably would say, because of the divided nature of his life, the duality with his father being a scientist that wasn't part of Starfleet and his mother being a career officer, I'm going to say that he rebelled as a teenager. He rebelled against his upbringing because it was just, when if he was with his mother on a starship, he was probably very much had to abide by Starfleet rules, couldn't really explore or do much. He was very confined on a starship or on a star base or outpost. But being with his father, say at the colony or on another world, observing other cultures, he probably had more free reign. So I could see that, his father was more loosey-goosey with discipline, while his mother was probably very rigid and, wanted him to obey Starfleet protocols. So I'm going to say that, especially as a teenager, he rebelled against this. So we're going to go with, we're going to add 2 to daring. See, also going with this path also actually adds to some other attributes, which we haven't even assigned any points to yet. And then insight by 2. So now insight has gone from 2 to 3. So now we're going to look at discipline. So your character's exposure to the ways and traditions of Starfleet allows them to increase any one discipline. All right, so we have only one discipline already with a point, which is science with 1 point. I'm going to go ahead, as I said earlier, that I think that he probably gravitate towards science and engineering. So we're going to add a point to engineering for Cameron. All right, so next we have to look at a focus. So focus is, Your character gains a single focus that should relate to their connection to Starfleet, covering skills learned during the character's formative years. Examples are astronavigation, composure, extravehicular activity, hand-to-hand combat, hand phasers, history, small craft, Starfleet protocol, starship recognition. Let's go with... So we're going to go with... Where's focus? We're going to add... I mean, these are examples, but they work very well. And I think I'm going to go with small craft. Because in my backstory for Cameron Hastings is during his time at the academy, and even just after he graduated, he became kind of a test pilot with Starfleet. So I think he probably did become part of Red Squadron at the academy. So let's go with small craft, because being on starships, he could give him a good opportunity to get hands-on experiences with shuttles. So next, so as you know, same with all the other steps, each outlook really gives you different disciplines, different attributes. So the sky's the limit on what you can do with these characters. And we don't need to cast because I'm not Klingon. Okay, let's see. Let's make sure I didn't miss anything. Okay. Okay, so aspirations. So in this approach, you will determine your character's driving aspiration and its impact on them. You can then fill in the details of how and why they formed this aspiration in your storytelling. This option allows your character to define themselves differently than with the other early outlook options. Instead of choosing a specific upbringing or cast, you may focus on the future your characters saw themselves in. So to a degree, it almost sounds like you could either do what we just did or do this as another option. But we're going to go ahead and add this into this. So we're going to continue on. We're going to add an aspiration to this. So we're going to roll the handy dandy D20. And there's, as before, different. So we got an aspiration to explore, to fly, to create, to discover, to protect, to prosper, and then pick one or re-roll. So we're going to re-roll and see what the dice say would be an aspiration for Cameron Hastings. All right, so got a 20. So that would mean I can pick, which, I mean, honestly, I do prefer that because I already have an idea of who he is. I'm going to say that Cameron has an aspiration to fly, which fits into the small craft aspect because, you know, he doesn't like to stay in one place. So we're going to say to fly. All right, so to fly, what does that mean? So to fly, you saw shuttles and transports soar overhead and wanted to be up there with them, in the skies and among the stars. You took piloting lessons, and soon as you were able and may have gotten in trouble a few times as a child for pushing your craft a little too far. So attributes, if you pursued this aspiration, your passion for flight increases your control by 2 and your daring by 1. All right, so attributes. So control. So now I go from 2 to 4 for control, and daring from 2 to 3. So if he eventually gave up on this aspiration and honed awareness and long hours studying craft increases your insight by 2 and your reason by 1. I wouldn't say he never gave up on flying. It's something that he still, obviously, I mean, he's a captain of a starship, so I would say that he's still amongst the stars, and he does enjoy going on away missions and via shuttlecraft whenever possible. All right, so discipline. Your efforts to reach the skies and the stars increases either con or engineering by 1. Right, so engineering has 1, con has nothing. So we're going to add 1 to con. And then here we go, we add another focus. Your focuses should relate to your dreams, covering the skills learned because they would help you fly. Examples: astronavigation, helm operations, propulsion systems, small craft, starship recognition. So we're going to add helm operations. Okay. So now we're on to step 4. So which is education. What was Cameron's education? So as it says here, some characters at the center of a captain's log story will have received their education at Starfleet Academy. As I'm not going to roll on this one because Cameron Hastings did receive his education at Starfleet Academy. So we're not going to roll, but you can choose to roll, which, based on whatever you roll. So basically, your options when you roll are Starfleet Academy, Allied military training, diplomatic training, or civilian training. So as I said, I'm choosing to pick without rolling randomly. He is a Starfleet Academy graduate, and that's what I'm going with. So okay, so now because he attended the academy, graduated, went through the ranks up to captain, let's see what track he went through in the academy. I'm going to do a random roll for this one. So the 3 are, as we all know, we got command, operations, and science. So we're going to see what we roll on this one. What he started out with is his focus in Starfleet Academy. So we got 16, which would put him on a science track, which actually does fit with what we established in the beginning, that because of his growing up, science and engineering would be kind of his 2 strong suits. So it does make sense. So we're going to jump to the page with sciences. All right, so science track. Somewhat isolated from the other tracks, the sciences track is primarily academic, with Starfleet Academy producing many accomplished scientists. Included within the science tracks, but separated by a distinct curriculum, is Starfleet medical, training doctors, nurses, and counselors to serve aboard Starfleet vessels and facilities across the Federation. So once again, we add a value, which I'm not going to go into today. So attributes. So add 3 points to attributes, which may be split between any 2 of the 3. increase 3 attributes by 1 each, or increase 1 attribute by 2 and another by 1. So I can pick any attribute. So I'm going to add 1 to fitness because there's absolutely nothing there yet. And then I'm going to add 2 to reason. So we'll go from 1 to 3. Okay. So disciplines. So increase either science or medicine by 2, then select 2 other disciplines to increase by 1 each. You may not increase any discipline above 4 at this stage. Okay, so I'm going to increase science by 2. So that will go from 1 to 3. And select 2 other disciplines to increase by 1 each. So I'm going to increase con by 1. So we'll do from 1 to 2. And then I'm going to increase command from 0 to 1. And then once again, we add focuses. So the character selects 3 focuses at this stage, at least one of which should relate to the character's chosen track. So anthropology, astrophysics, botany, computers, cybernetics, emergency medicine, genetics, geology, infectious disease, linguistics, physics, psychiatry, quantum mechanics, trauma surgery, and the list goes on. All right, so I'm going to add anthropology because that is something from his childhood that he already has. Archaeology. And then I'm going to add computers. Oh no. Yeah, computers to his focuses. Okay. So just as before, the other education paths do have their own roles, their own attributes that you gain. So we're just going to go to step 5, career length. All right, so how long? So next, choose the length of your character's career. Are they a novice with their whole career ahead of them? Do they have a few years of service under their belt? Or are they a veteran with decades of experience? If they're not a Starfleet officer at this point, at what point in their career do they find themselves when their story begins? So, because of the nature of Cameron's story, I'm not going to put him as a veteran. I'm not rolling. I already know where he is at this stage of where we pick up the story in Cameron's life. He's an experienced officer. So I'm going to put experienced rather than role, where I'm choosing experienced. Because he technically would be a veteran at this point in the story, but I don't want to give anything away yet as to why he's not a veteran. And he's definitely not a novice because he's been in Starfleet for many years at the time he became a captain. So we're going to go with the middle of the row and be experienced. So once again, the track does dictate what we add. So here, your character has several years of experience and is enjoying a promising career. Here, all we do is add a value, which I'm not going to do at this time. I'll do it later. All right, so now we're in step 6, career events. Your character's career is a tapestry of events and experiences, but a few will have been pivotal moments in the character's life. A character defines which moments of their life are important in retrospect, and that what seemed definitive to a young ensign may be inconsequential to the same officer decades later. Your character has 2 defining career events chosen or determined randomly from a list below and gains whatever benefits they provide. Each career event increases 1 attribute by 1 discipline by 1, and gives your character 1 additional focus. When assigning focus, you may select from one of the provided examples, randomly select one using the probability matrix on page 85, or choose one of your own making that fits the situation. So you don't have to go with any of the focuses that are in the book. You can make one up. All right, so let's see. So we got career events. Ship destroyed, death of a friend, lauded by another culture, negotiate treaty, required to take command, encounter with a truly alien being, serious injury, conflict with a hostile culture, mentored, transporter accident, dealing with a plague, and the list is, there's 20. So we need, I believe I said 2. Yeah, it has 2 defining career moments. So we'll see what we get here. All right. So we rolled, I believe, a 9. Yes, a 9. So 9 is mentored. All right, I feel that does fit with Cameron's story. Then now we roll again. 11. So 11, dealing with a plague. Interesting. I think I could fit that into my backstory for him somehow. Maybe early days in his career as an ensign or something. All right, so we're going to go with these 2 that we just rolled. So we're gonna, all right, so mentored. Highly respected individual took special notice of your character's career. For a while, the character served as the mentor's pilot and aide, gaining the benefit of the mentor's experience and lessons. Who was the mentor? Do they remain a contact or even a friend of your character? We'll go in, I'll develop that later, but that does fit very well with who Cameron is and where the story's going. All right, so attributes. The mentor's lessons came in many forms. Increase any one attribute by 1. All right, so I'm going to, since I don't have anything in presence, I'm going to add 1 to presence. So now all my attributes do now have values. Okay, so now disciplines. Time spent as the mentor's pilot and studying the structures and procedures of their organization increase your character's con by 1. Perfect. So that goes from 2 to 3. And it does fit with, the whole shuttlecraft, the small craft, helm operations, focuses of Cameron. So now we add a focus reflecting the lessons learned. Examples, composure or etiquette. Through any focus reflecting the mentor's specialties would be fitting, though any focus. Okay, so I'm going to say, so focus is, I'm going to say Starfleet protocols. All right, so now we're going to go to deal with a plague. Your character ship was assigned to provide aid to a world dealing with an epidemic. What was the disease? What was running rampant? What planet was it affecting? Did the character deal directly with the sick? How was your character involved? So, attributes: helping people in distress during a massive crisis. Helped your character understand people, increasing insight by 1. So we go from 3 to 4 for insight. Disciplines: dealing with a problem of this nature increases your character's medicine by 1. So it goes from 0 to 1. And then focuses: add a focus reflecting how they helped during the crisis. Examples: emergency medicine, infectious disease, or triage. I'm going to go with emergency medicine. All right, so we now have dealt with our 2 career events. Now we're in step 7, finishing touches. At this stage, your character is almost complete and needs only a few final elements and adjustments. So final additions, you just add a final value. This might reflect the career events rolled up in step 6, or it may represent some other element. Attributes: increase 2 attributes by 1 each. All right, so I'm going to increase fitness from 1 to 2 and presence from 1 to 2. Your character may not have any attributes above 12 and only 1 attribute with a score of 12. So we don't have that. We're 4, 3, 2, 4, 2, 3. Disciplines: increase 2 disciplines by 1 each. So I'm going to add 1 to security because we haven't added anything there. I'm going to add 1 to command. So we got 2 for command, 3 for con, 1 for security, 1 for engineering, 3 for science, and 1 for medicine. And your character may not have any disciplines above 5 and only 1 discipline with a score of 5. For any discipline which has a rating above and beyond those limits, reduce it until it is within the limit. Okay, the complete character should have the following elements. Your character's attributes added together should total 56. Your character's discipline added together should total 16. All right, so let's do some quick math here. 4 plus 3 plus 2 plus 4 plus 2 plus 3. I'm at 18, so I obviously need to add more attributes. And then disciplines should be 16. 2 plus 3 plus 1 plus 1 plus 3 plus 1 equals 11. So I do need to add some disciplines as well. And your character should have 4 values and 6 focuses. So as I said, I wasn't touching values today, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I got 6 focuses. All right, so I'm just going to stop there for now for today. This is just a basic overview of creating the character, and I'm going to complete the rest of who Cameron Hastings is, including his values, outside the podcast. But you now have a generalized idea of what you need to do to create a Captain's Log character. And as I said, you should just write down what you want your character's backstory to look like. Just write a paragraph or 2 so you have an understanding of who your character is before you actually go into this process, so you can know if you want to do random rolls or actually just say, no, I want them to be born on Earth. I want him to grow up in a utopian society. So it's good to know who your character, have an idea of who your character is before you actually go into this process. Unless you want to go completely blind and then create the backstory based off of what you wrote, you can do that too. This is your character, and you can do whatever you want to create a unique and amazing character for Captain's Log. So I'm going to sign off, and next week, or in 2 weeks, we'll be going on our first adventure. It's with Captain Cameron Hastings. Once again, happy Star Trek Day, and See you around the galaxy.